Hello everyone, I'm Marshall Carper and welcome to Marketing Monday. Every Monday I put together a quick little video that covers a tip, a trick, or a strategy that can improve your marketing and grow your business. Now usually these videos are 1 or 2 minutes long. I like to keep it short, give you a quick insight that you can apply right away. But in this video we have something a little special prepared. I've gotten a lot of questions, a lot of requests for this. So we're going to dive really deep into my diagnostic sales funnel process or marketing mapping process. This is something I do with every new client that I bring on if we're going to talk strategy, if we're going to talk about the direction their marketing as a whole should take. And this lets us map out everything they have in play now, all the pieces they're using, all the pieces they're thinking about using, so we can understand what every piece of their marketing is supposed to be doing, so we can measure it, and so we can understand how it interconnects. So we map out the entire strategy of their sales funnel. So sales funnel is just what I call it. That's the way it makes most sense for me. That's a term that's used in a lot of different places in the new business world. So sales funnel can be used to describe the sales process as a whole that you take with a prospect. Some people call it the buyer's journey. I don't really care what terminology you use, but at the end of the day, you end up with a map of how your marketing works and how it should be working. So that way you can measure every stage and identify problems and potential opportunities to improve your marketing. And that's really the biggest thing that this tool does, because a lot of times when I sit down with a new client, they say, oh, I want to do advertising, or oh, I want to do Instagram, or oh, I want to do SEO or search engine optimization, because they have an idea of what they need for their business, but they aren't quite sure how to do it, or they kind of glommed onto a buzzword and they think that they need this one thing when really there's a bigger opportunity elsewhere in their sales funnel process. So this is your sales funnel here. Let's pull this up. This is just a map of my design based on a lot of things that I've looked at in the past, based on a lot of reading I've done and experience I have with clients and other agencies and professionals I've worked with. So I've put this together from my 10 years of writing and marketing experience. So the way this map works is it maps the entire cycle of a person entering your business, learning about your business, eventually leaving your business, and they talk about it, then they go back and they talk to their friends about it. So we start in the social cloud. So the social cloud is basically all the conversations occurring around your business. Then we drop into the sales funnel where somebody first hears about it, then their interest grows, then you turn them into a lead, you nurture the lead, hopefully you get the sale, then you have some retention efforts, and those retention efforts, whether they're positive or negative or effective or not, can breed word of mouth marketing, and that word of mouth can be positive or negative as well, which then goes back and fuels that social cloud. That's the broad overview. So each of these is a stage in the sales funnel process. Each of these is a stage in your marketing that you'll use individual marketing vehicles to accomplish. So we're going to start at the exposure stage. Okay. So the exposure stage is just what it sounds like. This is where a potential customer first learns about your business. So usually this is prior to them visiting your website. Maybe they heard about you through an ad, maybe they heard about you through a search engine, maybe from one of your previous customers. So they're just now hearing about your brand. And there's a lot of ways that you can drive exposure. These are some of the tactics that you might find in exposure. Advertisements, signage, events, flyers, shared content. Somebody took your blog post and shared it somewhere. Somebody shared your Facebook post. They might have heard about your business from a news piece or a news story, some sort of news coverage. Networking, that word of mouth element. Direct mail, maybe you did a big mail campaign. Maybe they plugged your name into a search engine like we talked about before. Maybe you were at a conference or some other discovery engine like Yelp or Zomato or Urban Spoon or Angie's List or something along those lines. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of different vehicles that can come into play here, but we're trying to figure out what are those first touch points? What vehicles are the ones that get to brand new customers that first let them know that you exist in the first place? So again, this is not a definitive list. There's a lot of creative ways that you can drive exposure. We want to know what marketing efforts you're doing to generate that exposure. Okay, so let's dive into interest, because ideally a customer hears about your business and then they start to learn more about it. So how do they go about doing that? So usually interest building is going to, if exposure did its job, it's going to occur in one of two places, either your website or your brick and mortar location. For most businesses, it might be a combination of both, leaning more heavily on the website, because that's just the world we live in today. It's very digital. People usually find things browsing on their mobile phones, they go to your website, and then if you do have a brick and mortar store, they come to the brick and mortar store later on. So if you're going to build interest, how do you do that? So typically your website's going to do most of the heavy lifting here, but there are some other vehicles that can help to educate your prospect about what makes your business worth caring about or learning more about. So this is where the customer is exposed to your brand, so they have a little bit of a reason to visit your website. And when they land on your website, you have some great copy, maybe some videos, maybe some graphics that really start to hook them in. So they start to care more about what you have to say, so that they start learning more and exploring your business more and your brand more. This is a very critical stage because this is different from generating a lead. This is the process between exposure and lead generation. A lot of people skip this process, but a great website, a great physical store experience can go a long way here. Some other things you might do that might play a role at this exposure building, depending on how, at this interest building rather, depending on how people learn about your business. Beyond your website, it could be a sales rep. Maybe it's in store or on the phone, or maybe even at a conference. Customer testimonials play a big role here. Case studies can play a big role. Educational videos are great. Blog content. Then maybe retargeting ads. Maybe they saw the first ad and generated and demonstrated some level of interest, but you had to chase after them with Facebook retargeting or Google retargeting to get them back onto your property to pay attention to you. Very common stuff. But if you're not accounting for interest building, you're probably missing a pretty big opportunity. So make sure you're on board with that and you're taking care of that. So once somebody, they've been exposed to your business, they've gotten more interested, they're paying more attention to you, now you have a chance to capture a lead. So this is where you get the prospect to opt in to more direct communication or permission marketing if you're a Seth Godin fan. So you get a name, an email, and a phone number, maybe just a name and an email, maybe just an email, but usually you have some direct access to the person, whether it's typically email is really what we're looking at mostly nowadays with digital marketing, but phone could still play a role depending on your industry. So once the person becomes a lead, once you get the lead, you have the permission to speak to them directly. And that's huge. That means you're no longer chasing them around. You're no longer kind of begging them to come in to pay attention to you. They've said, okay, I want to learn more. Tell me about it. So you can do an email campaign. You can follow up with a phone call. You can start developing that more lasting, meaningful relationship. They might not have bought anything yet. They probably haven't in the case of most businesses, but you have a unique opportunity to convince them to buy something. And it might take a few months, and that's okay. That's the lead time for the bigger ticket items especially. But having that piece of contact information lets you continue to demonstrate the value that your brand brings to this particular customer. And that's pretty awesome. So if your lead's not immediately converting to a sale, don't panic. It's never a bad thing to capture prospect information, especially if it's the right traffic, the right prospects. So if your exposure level and your interest level are doing the right thing and bringing the right people in, because that's something you should measure as well, your lead generation is going to be the next stage of leveraging and getting the most value out of that. So if you're going to try to capture a lead, you can get someone to give up their contact information. Usually we're talking about a white paper download, an ebook, maybe it's a coupon or discount offer, maybe it's a sneak peek or a free trial of your service that you're offering, something that's relatively low risk, low cost, low maintenance for you, but pretty high value for the customer. So make sure, or the prospect at this point, we wish they were a customer already, but make sure it's valuable. Make sure it's educational. It's, yes, you're driving towards a sale, but really you're trying to give the customer something because you're trying to establish that you're a trustworthy business and that you actually care about them making a smart purchase. So give value, demonstrate value, give value, demonstrate value. That should always be a big part of the motto here, especially at the lead generation stage. So once you've generated the lead, once you've captured the information, now that sets off a whole new set of marketing tactics, because getting the lead is one thing, nurturing the lead is a whole other scenario. So we move deeper into our funnel. Now you notice here that the sales funnel is getting warmer as we go down. So the customer is getting more comfortable with you. They're trusting you more. They know a lot more about you now. They're starting to be a lot closer to the point where they decide, yeah, this product or service is what I'm looking for. It is for me. This is what I want. So at the nurture stage, you've gotten the lead. This is the communication that you deliver after the lead generation stage. So email is usually what we talk about here. Some email autoresponder. We have a pre-built series of emails that you send to them over the course of sometimes 6, 12 months to, again, demonstrate value, educate them, tell them about your business, tell them about what you've learned, share some tips and tricks and insights that the customer will care about to keep them on board and paying attention to you and your brand as they get more comfortable and warm up to the idea of actually spending money. In the B2B space, this can take a long time. This can be a sales process that takes 1, maybe even 2 years, depending on how big the ticket price is. In the consumer space, this idea of interest through lead nurturing can happen pretty quickly, depending on the size of the sale. So if we're talking about a $5 item, this can happen almost all in one go, but it's still important to break it out because some customers will not buy instantly, and you need to account for those customers that don't buy instantly because they could mean a lot of profit down the road that you'll either enjoy if you account for it, or you miss out on if you don't. So this lead nurturing, usually it's occurring during email. A sales follow-up directly from a salesperson, call or email might also be a part of your process. Direct mail might even be a part of this, a little more rare, but it can work. And then retargeting ads can also continue to play a role here, depending on your budget. Continuing to use those ads to keep you top of mind once they've opted in can still be effective. Again, that might be a little bit more rare, but it's still pretty useful. So after they become a lead, you're pushing them in conversion, right? So this is our next stage in our sales funnel. So conversion is when the customer buys. They finally agree to the sale. This is awesome. So this sounds like you're out of the woods. This sounds like, oh, we got the sale. We don't really need to pay too much attention to this stage. But actually, this can be pretty critical because there's a lot of drop off in the stage between nurture and conversion, because the sales process itself, the way you structure it, the way you design it, the experience you deliver can actually put you ahead or behind the curve if you're not careful. So even though it sounds like you've done all the work, there's actually still work to be done here. So when we talk about an e-commerce business, especially, every click matters. But even in a brick and mortar store, the experience that your cashier or your service representative or your sales representative gives the customer, even though they've agreed to buy whatever you sell, that experience that they get can mean a big deal for retention and for word of mouth. So you want to evaluate your e-commerce website. If that's what you're using, you want to make sure that it's simple and easy to use, and you want to look at everything the user has to go through and what they might get hung up on and how many clicks they have to take, and is it easy to follow, or the graphics clear, is the user experience quality. This matters big time. The more clicks, the more likely people are to opt out of the sale before they've completed it. The point of sale system that you use in person can also make a big deal. If it takes a long time for you to use it, or it's difficult for your employees to use it, that can translate to a bad experience for your customer. Your payment processor can be a big deal here because we're talking about flexibility. Do you take the range of credit cards? Do you accept PayPal? Are you going to accept something maybe more esoteric like Bitcoin? Depending on your audience, that can matter. But your payment processor should be trustworthy, because you don't want to be the subject of a data breach, because that can really kill your retention and give you some really bad PR down the road. And you want it to be smooth and painless, so you want it to happen quickly. So using a good payment processor on a good internet connection could go a long way towards your future retention efforts. And again, the people handling all this matter immensely. So don't skimp on keeping your employees happy, because you want them to treat your customers well and give them a good sales experience. Okay. So we got the sale. So we're pumping along through our sales process here. We've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from exposure all the way through conversion. Now let's look at retention. So if you've followed my videos before, you know that I harp on this big time. A Harvard Business Review article found that a 5% increase in retention can mean an 80% increase in profit. That's huge. And when you think about it, it's pretty much a no-brainer, because if we look at the exposure level, we're running ads and things like that to get people into our sales funnel. That can be really expensive. That can cost us a lot of money. There's a lot of churn there. It takes a lot of work to get someone into that funnel in the first place. But once somebody's already a customer, if we play our cards right, it's cheaper to keep them as a customer. So when we look at retention, we want to make sure that after the sale, we're doing everything we can to keep that person in our community, to keep them talking positively about us, and to keep them coming back. So that's why our sales funnel here has a loop here. We go retention through word of mouth marketing, and then back into the sales cloud. So retention efforts, that should be a distinct part of your strategy that you put a good bit of effort in. And exactly what you do is going to depend, again, on your target audience. But usually a retention strategy is going to involve customer service. If they have a problem with your product or your service and they need help, how easy it is for them to get the help that they want. If it's broken, how difficult is the return? As a consumer, you probably have had experiences where you've lost total faith in a brand you used to like because the customer service experience was negative. So carry that lesson into your own business and deliver great customer service to your customers. Retention efforts can also include email, where you're kind of following them up with like a newsletter or some relevant education. Doesn't have to be sales all the time. Doesn't have to be pushing a product all the time. Just continuing to build value and keeping that relationship alive, even if there's going to be a big gap between the next time your customer purchases and now. Keeping your business top of mind in a thoughtful, meaningful way is a big deal. Could mean a phone call, again, depending on your industry. Direct mail, maybe something as simple as a handwritten thank you card. Depending, again, on your industry, this might make a lot of sense. That can be a great experience, a nice touch that some businesses can't deliver or won't deliver. Social media is huge here. To me, this is where social media really shines, not so much in acquisition, but in retention, because now you have a chance to make these customers a part of your community and longtime advocates, and social media is a fantastic way to do that. And blog content as well, kind of melding in with that social media conversation, delivering valuable, insightful content that makes sense for your audience, not always selling them something, just being an active participant in the community yourself. So as that moves into word of mouth, social media continues to be a part of that, because we want people to talk on our behalf, and a lot of times giving them messages that they want to share makes that easier. There's other ways that we can do that. There's other ways we can stimulate that positive word of mouth marketing. We can use branded merchandise, shareable content, affiliate marketing, which is where you give someone a piece of the sale for talking positively about you. That can be a great way to stimulate word of mouth marketing. Review sites and review listings, encouraging your customers to leave you a review on Yelp or Google Plus or Amazon, depending again on your industry. Developing relationships with thought leaders. If you have a customer that has a following, they have an audience themselves, making that relationship more formal to promote you is a big deal. You could look into sponsored or paid advocates. That can also be a pretty big deal. But as all this word of mouth marketing is pumping along, it can be difficult to track. So you need to start looking into things like social media monitoring and sentiment analysis. That can be a little bit more complex. It might be out of reach for the smaller businesses out there. But there are great tools you can use now to start getting that going. Something as simple as Google Alerts, where you do some keywords based around your business. So if a news article pops up about you or somebody posts somewhere about you, you'll get a notice. You'll get a little note from Google. Hootsuite has some tools you can use, or you can go into a more advanced system like BrandWatch. If you really want to go big on it, you probably won't need to early on, but you need to have some way of monitoring the conversations that are going on about your business, so you know what people are saying, so you can follow up on anything negative. Again, this is just good practice. Okay, so we're almost there. Again, this is a big process that I usually do, like a big whiteboard exercise with clients that I have. We're into our social cloud now. So the person's gone through the whole sales funnel, they've left, and now they're going back into what Scott Stratton of Unmarketing calls the social cloud. That's just a fancy way of saying everywhere and anywhere that a conversation about your business or your industry or your community could be taking place. So the social cloud is social media. It's also in-person community groups and events, among friends at private parties. Anytime someone can have a conversation with someone else, that's the social cloud. And that's pretty broad, but it's still important to consider because it could inform your marketing efforts later. So maybe a lot of your customers are local and they happen to belong to church groups. Well, that could make a difference in how you plan to choose your marketing vehicles down the road. Again, just kind of shooting from the hip here on some examples. This is all very much dependent on business and industry, but you should be aware that people are going to talk, and you should probably participate there. All the things we talked about in terms of the word of mouth marketing was like social media tracking and monitoring and sentiment analysis can come into play here. But really one of the biggest things you can do in terms of the social cloud is be a part of it yourself. So if you sell sports equipment in your town, you should probably be involved with little league teams or Pee Wee football or the youth soccer associations. You should be an active member of that community. So people know that you're there, people know who you are and that you care about the communities that you're selling to, and also so that you're more on top of the conversations that are relevant to you, that are relevant to your customers because you're interacting with them regularly. Okay, so we just covered a lot of material there. We went through quite a bit. We went through it pretty fast. This is honestly going to be a book length conversation for me eventually. Here, I'm working on that process, on that project. But hopefully, this gives you an idea of where you can start, how you can start mapping out your marketing and identifying what each of your tactics is supposed to be doing. You should be able to assign a role to every one of your tactics. Sometimes a tactic will have a few, like your email marketing, for example, can come into play at different places. But you'll probably have to use it differently in each place, and that's a big deal. So at the end of the day, if you can say, this is supposed to be doing this is supposed to be doing that, this is supposed to be accomplishing this, you can measure it. You can better evaluate your efforts and identify the breakdowns. Because if you are generating a ton of traffic from your exposure, but nobody is signing up to be a lead, you have one of two problems there. Either you're bringing in the wrong traffic, or maybe you're not doing a good job of generating enough interest that they actually want to hand over an email or a phone number. So it starts to give you the right diagnostic process, an effective diagnostic process to improve your marketing. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. I know we covered a lot of material. Feel free to download this video, look back through it, and also email me questions. I'd be happy to help. So good luck, and I'll see you guys next week.